So welcome back to my Ford Transit Mk8 Campervan Build, and this time I'm going to be insulating all the walls. So I am going to be using the PIR board, the insulation board we used for the floor and I used for the ceiling on these bigger panels. For all these smaller areas I'm going to be using recycled plastic roof insulation. I've got absolutely loads of this stuff from my old van, so when I got rid of that I took out all my insulation out of that, which was this, so I've got lots to spare of it. Which I guess makes it double recycled, so I've recycled it from an old vehicle as well. And that's going to fill all of these sort of cavities in here, which would be a little bit too difficult to shape for the PIR board. And then we're going to cover everything in this sort of reflective bubble wrap. It's not insulation, it often gets confused but as insulation, but it's not. The idea of what I'm using it for is going to be its vapour barrier. So unlike the PIR board, which has got those nice silver layers on it, this isn't going to be vapour proof, so we're going to be applying the vapour barrier and taping that in place. And then we're going to be making the structure for the battens, so where I'm going to be mounting all the ply lining to the walls, we're going to be using these timber battens again. So these are again 38mm and 50mm by 2 by 25mm. And the blue is just a treatment applied to the wood, which is no relation or interest for the van build reasons, it's just the wood size I needed happened to have this treatment, which means they're blue. So let's get started. So just like on the ceiling, I'm going to be putting battens in. The reason is that I'm going to be ply lining the walls and I need something to fix it to, because I'm not going to fix it directly to the metal for the same cold bridging reason of the ceiling. So I'm going to be fixing the timber to the metalwork in strategic places. So I'm going to be using a mix between self-tapping screws. There are existing M8 bolt holes and self-adhesive for the bigger ones. These to be in sort of strategic places because these are going to get, one, the ply lining mounted on it, but also in other areas it's going to have the overhead cupboards and things mounted, so they need to be in sort of thought through areas. Generally what I'm going to do is just going to cut them to size and screw them directly into the metal. That's going to leave a nice sort of 2.5cm gap between the vapour barrier and the ply lining which goes in front of it, which is a good sort of service area where I can run some wires and cables if need be for adding mounting other things. But before I start putting those battens on, I am going to need to start filling these cavities with insulation first. My selection of old roof insulation which needs to go into the van. Right, that's all the insulation gathered. Hopefully it's enough. Right, I don't think it's going to be very possible to insulate these with the roof insulation. Forcing it through these gaps compresses it too much and then it just drops out the bottom. Might see if we can get a little bit from underneath, but all of these are generally insulated. I'm struggling getting these bits done. So for some of the more important strategic areas, I'm just going to be mounting these 4 battens to the side walls. Using the M8 bolts holes which are along here, as well as additional screws. I need to line up the holes. So I'm going to be using these pre-existing threaded bolt holes to mount this batten on. So what I'll do is just put it in place and I'm just going to mark off the different slots where I need to drill holes so I can recess the bolt and then I'll be able to screw it in. Let's see how aligned these are. Well, if I'm honest, I don't actually see much point putting any glue behind this. I don't really see it necessarily. I might put one or two self-tapping screws, but I don't really see any point. I don't think these are going to come loose anytime soon. Cool. Yeah, some self-tapping screws in some of the looser areas. But apart from that, first one mounted. So I need to see if it's level, and you can't use the spirit level on a van because, well, it's a vehicle. It's on 4 independently suspensioned wheels, so I'm going to be using just a straight edge off what I know is meant to be vertical in the vehicle to make sure this is level. Another way I can look is, I know that these are straight, all these bolts are in a line, so I'll just measure at different sections. So 28.5, 29, 28. So it's in slightly lower than the rest. So now it's 28.5, 28.5, 28.5. Cool. So I'm also going to leave a little gap there, so when I'm doing my cladding, I can slot the last cladding piece in there and sort of hide the edge, opposed to sort of butting it up against this stuff. Not that it really matters too much anyway, because the ply lining which is going to go on top of it is going to cover that. There's not much metal here to glue to, so again I'm just going to self-tap screws all the way along this. There's no bolts for this bit either. I'm just going to fill behind each sort of area to figure out, you know, if there is metal there or there's holes. So I'm going to put one here. I'm going to put them quite near the clamps at either end, the middle first, and then just move the clamps around so it's supported. There's my batteries flat. Right, well, those are the horizontal battens done. I am going to do some vertical battens as well. But first I'm going to insulate these panels, get the Vapour barrier over them, and then I'm going to do the sort of vertical battening. So it's time to insulate the walls, and I'm going to be using this recycled plastic roof insulation. So this stuff's a bit different than the sort of fiberglass related roof insulation, which makes you itchy and is not great to use in vans because it's bad for your lungs if you breathe in some of those fibres. This is all plastic, and this actual stuff I used in my last van as well, and that was in there for 6 years. So the way I'm going to put it into the walls is, I've seen quite a lot of people use spray adhesive, but last time I just used double-sided tape on the panel and stuck it in, and then used a line of duct tape either side just to hold it in, and that worked on my last van, and that held in place 6 years until I dismantled it. So that's what I'm going to do. With this insulation though, it's really important you don't compress it and really squeeze it in. That's not doing its job. You want all of those air gaps in between the fibres, and that's what's trapping the air and working as its insulation. It's not as effective as similar thickness of the PIR board, but it's a lot easier to put into all these awkward shapes. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm just making a point to make sure my conduit is going to be in front of my insulation, so if I do need to access it for any reason, I can just cut into the conduit there and not have to go digging behind the insulation. Well, that's all the areas I'm going to stuff with the roof insulation done. I've got a little bit left over, and I think I just might put it into a few areas where I think I can get a little bit more in. I do need to do the cavities in the door, in the back doors, the sliding doors, and I will definitely need more for that, so I'm going to probably do that another time when next time I go to the shops to get some stuff. The actual faces I'm going to be doing with the PIR board, so I've got to cut some more of that and figure out how I'm going to mount that out. Even when doing your best to fill the cavities, there are going to be some areas you just can't get to, like this beam here. There's a plate here and there's a plate here, so this area is entirely uninsulated. You can do your best to shove little wads down, but it's really difficult to insulate some of these. You could use expanding foam, but there's quite a few reasons I don't want to use expanding foam, and I'm not going to. So something I've also done and insulated is I remade the wheel arch covers from the original square ones into a size which is sort of better utilising the space, and I've insulated the insides of them with the 2.5cm or 25mm PIR board. So these are nicely insulated and quite heavy duty and strong as well. So I'm going to be getting those bolted down to the floor, or sorry, screwed down to the floor, and that should be those wheel arches all insulated. So it's time to start doing the vapour barrier. This is the sort of stuff I'm going to be using. I'm going to once again be using double-sided tape just to stick it on, stick it down, and then cut it to size, and then seal the edges up with the foil tape like we've done in other parts of the van. So last night about 2 o'clock in the morning I realised I haven't done something massively efficiently, or I can do it more efficiently. Like this vapour barrier, as it works, looks really neat and it's really effective. It's going to be super effective for a vapour barrier, but I did realise that because I'm using these 2.5cm 25mm battens, the PIR board is also 25mm and it fits nice and perfectly in these gaps. Unfortunately, this bubble wrap stuff is about 4mm, so it's not great in the back corners, so I'm going to have to take it off, which is a bit of a waste, but it'd be far more efficient to use, and effective, I'll have more insulation, to use this board which is 25mm insulation and a vapour barrier in itself than just a vapour barrier. So I think I'm going to look at see if I can get around without taking it off, or take it off and just cut some squares again and slot it into these gaps and seal those up, because that should be a pretty perfect vapour barrier. I think one of the things I want to get across in this build series is I am like perfectly happy to show you the mistakes I make doing it, like doing the vapour barrier and then realising actually it'd be way more efficient if I just use this board again. You know, I want to sort of make those mistakes. I don't know, you know, I've not built a van of this scale before, so I'm sort of making it up and learning as I'm doing and just sort of using, well, common sense as much as I can, sort of come up with the ways I'm doing things. So hopefully, you know, you can take away some things from these videos and just sort of see ways to do things or ways not to do things. One of the things I didn't realise about building a van is the sheer amount of time you will spend cleaning the van continually during the process of a hoover or picking up little scraps of stuff. So this bit is going to be a bit fiddly. But I'm just going to use my hole saw to put some holes through for this. Well, that's the upper panel all insulated with their vapour barriers. Yeah, I know I had to undo some of my previous work, but overall I'm happier with the end result, and it's far easier to cut these squares than it is sticking around with all that reflective stuff. This will work perfectly fine as a vapour barrier, and it's an additional 25mm of insulation, so win-win, I see. So I'm going to end this episode here. And we'll spend most of the time concentrating on getting sort of the easier areas battened, and how to do a vapour barrier, and then how to undo a vapour barrier and doing it in a slightly different way. Both those methods works. But once again, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Feel free to subscribe. Bye.